We're protecting everything the rebellion fought for.
Good luck. You're gonna need it.
Today we're talking about The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is basically just a fun, simple summer blockbuster. And it could stand as season 4 of The Mandalorian, because if you watch the movie, you can kind of see where different episodes would end up, start and begin, and when the next phase goes. But I did think it worked for the focus story they were trying to do here. This one is basically just Mando and Grogu are now working with the New Republic, just hunting down old warlords from the Empire and bringing them to justice. And they are tasked to bring in Rada Hutt, who is Jabba the Hutt's son. So there is that, I guess, link to the original trilogies in the previous Skywalker sagas. But this is really a movie focused on just Mando and Grogu on this adventure, capturing different warlords, bringing them to justice, and then kind of helping out Rada and trying to figure out a bigger picture of some secrets going on around the Hutts and how they are trying to work with the New Republic. This one's directed by Jon Favreau. He's done Iron Man, he's done Jungle Book, The Lion King, so he likes those live action Disney films for some reason. Jon Favreau doing the writing along with Dave Filoni, and Dave Filoni loves putting himself in the stuff he works on, and he plays a X-Wing pilot in this who shows up a couple times, and I don't know, when you know who he is, he kind of takes you out of the movie a little bit. This one really stars 3 people as Mando. You got Pedro Pascal, who does the voice in the scenes where Mando's helmet's off, and then you also have Lateef Crowder, who is the stunt performer and does a lot of heavy lifting because there's a lot of action in this movie. And then you have Brandon Wayne, who does kind of the suit performances, and that's pretty much any time. Probably when they couldn't get Pedro on set, they just had him walking around doing his thing. And then you have Jeremy Allen White as Rada the Hutt, and you have Sigourney Weaver as Colonel Ward, who is kind of the person that Grogu and Mando work for. All right, so the story here is pretty much season 4 of The Mandalorian, but in a feature film format. You have Rada the Hutt showing up as kind of, he's not really the bad guy. They play him differently. He doesn't turn out to be the character you think he's going to be. I did see some comparisons that people are comparing him to the new Jar Jar Binks as a new Star Wars character that everybody hates. I didn't have an issue with him. Maybe Jeremy Allen White's performance was a little bit dry and unstilted, but that could just be how they EQ'd his voice and put some synthesized stuff on it to make it sound a little bit more, I guess, Hutt-like. And maybe that's why people had issue with it, is that he speaks English, or I think they call it like common language in the Star Wars universe, but he does speak English. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 small segments where he mentions some stuff that's the Hutt language, but I liked his character. I enjoyed a lot of the action that he was in. And you also get to see a lot more of how Mando and Grogu live outside of these little adventures they go on. There's some stints of them, I guess, is their home planet and their house where they're working on this new ship they got. You can see that Grogu has evolved since the TV series. He seems to be a lot older. He's a lot more self-sufficient and a lot more capable on his own. And that comes into play a lot with the action pieces. He has a lot more to do here, especially towards the second and third act of the film. And there's a big section of the movie that's really just following Grogu and some of the stuff he's doing, which was a lot of fun to see, especially that they use a lot of animatronics and puppetry and how they created him along with some of the other aliens. The visual here's are pretty strong. I know I've read some things around people not liking how the Hutts were portrayed or how they were created, and comparing it to the original films and when Jabba was first introduced and how he was created with a giant puppet. I thought the animation and CG that they used for the Hutts was fine. There was nothing weird about it. Though they could have did the puppeteer thing, I think they used that for most of the Grogu stuff, because Grogu is mostly puppeteer robotic stuff with a little bit of CGI enhancements. And I think that really makes his character a lot more interesting to, I guess, find believable, because if it was just completely CGI for Grogu, I think it would take you out of the movie, even though you know it's a puppet. And yeah, sometimes when he's moving around, it does look weird, you could say, but I love that aspect of it. They also do this with the Anzelians, which is the little characters that are, I guess, mechanics that are smaller than Grogu. And there's some funny stuff with how they interact with Grogu and how he interacts with them, especially in this scene where he joins them in one of their ships and he's like super big inside the ship. Everything with those characters is fun. You can also see that, I don't know if they actually did some of the droids as puppets, but the way they animated them really felt similar to how they were presented in the earlier films. They do have some of the aliens from the chess set or whatever that game's called on the Millennium Falcon that show up in certain aspects of this movie, so you have some callbacks to that. But they also are animated in a way that feels a little bit more Harryhausen style, or kind of a throwback to the older way of this kind of stop motion animation. And I really loved how that looked on the screen. So, Jon Favreau is a pretty good director. Sometimes the stories he's worked on, probably not the best, but I think visually and technically he's able to work and direct the teams to put out some stuff that's really awesome. And the score here is also another fantastic thing, with Ludwig Göransson returning as, Ludwig Göransson. I don't know how to say that. Mando has one of the better themes in the Star Wars universe. It's probably one of my favorite themes in Star Wars outside of the actual Star Wars theme. I think Mando's is the strongest, and you just know when you hear it. And there's a couple of variations that show up in here that are kind of this like techno synthwave version of it. And when that came up, you knew, some stuff was going to go down. Definitely a lot of stuff going on, definitely with the audio, the visuals. And with Star Wars, it's a very expansive universe, and it's awesome to see stuff that you can go from Andor, that's super dark, gritty, political intrigue, to something, I guess, a little more lighthearted with Mandalorian and Grogu, where they're just kind of going on these types of Western adventures, saving townsfolk. And here they're, hunting down these ex-Empire warlords. So if you're looking for just a fun movie to go out and check out in the summer, I highly recommend checking out The Mandalorian and Grogu. You'll probably find something to like here, even if you're a curmudgeon and dislike everything that comes out of Star Wars. But if you enjoy a little puppetry, a little bit of hijinks, definitely check this one out in the theater. I give Mandalorian and Grogu 3 stars.